JPOs, the junior professional officers, the same way Ethiopia is going to resolve the same problems, which is always going to have problems because of the two communities in Ethiopia. The person is not okay, is known as a politician, but not really as a person who's going to manage a continent. So I will leave it to that, and I hope my points are clear on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna, for that. And we really
Baba concede. He's always rejected results and always has a sullen face. But yesterday I saw him what I know about reciprocation, whereby you're obligated to reciprocate the favors. You as a community, Luo community, Coast community, I gave you an MP, I gave you a CS, I took your ODM chairperson to the AUC, I gave him all this money. So you're obligated to vote for me in the coming elections, because how Ruto operates is exactly how Moi used to operate, because he's a protege of Moi. So he's looking at how he can be able to carry on in spite of doing nothing and achieving nothing and being extremely incompetent, because that's how Moi was. He was not achieving anything. He had no clue about what he's doing, but he learned how to manage tribal kingpins, raise tribal kingpins, and then manage them so that they can manage the populace. And that's exactly what it is. So Unfortunately, managing Raila Odinga is a very difficult, particularly when he's now not preoccupied somewhere else. So as much as people are dismissing the whole thing and thinking that Raila Odinga is not going to do anything other than just follow Ruto, I don't think that's going to be the case. And even why he really stuck with Uhuru, of which the way he was behaving when he was with Uhuru is like they were equals. He was not behaving like he's at the behest of Uhuru. He wanted the BBI so that there can be a prime minister position for him. And at the end of the day, of course, Uhuru was supposed to back him up for the presidential seat instead of reciprocating, feeling obliged to reciprocate the support that he got from Rift Valley through Ruto. So I don't think people are really misguided to think that he'll shake things up when he comes, or rather, already he's come back. He's now no longer in AUC, so it's just a matter of time. He'll become restless. You know, he's a contrarian and he's a revolutionary, and even during when at one point when this abduction saga had really picked up, you could see he knows that he should shut up, because all those positions he was given, and this AUC thing was just a shut up thing so that he can shut up. And the guy at one point he spoke against the abductions, and he's supposed to have what he's been done for Beruto is supposed to shut him up, but sometimes he can't just help himself. He has to come out. So we are back to square one with Ruto. Ruto must find a way of how to deal with Raila, because eventually Raila is going to be a problem for him, and there is no way in hell. I am almost 100% that Raila is going to back him in 2027. If he's not going to, himself is not going to stand, he will probably field someone. That's what I think. I don't see him under any circumstances supporting Ruto for 2027, regardless of what he does or how many CS positions he might go along, but he's not going to support him eventually. And even during this period now between 2025 2027, he may not be as quiet. And I think Ruto saw this, and he saw, because you see now when he saw Gen Z, and he saw that what if Gen Z was to unite with the opposition? I'll have a very hard time. So that's why he took, after of course bribing all the other MPs who are there, and they moved to his side, who are in parliament. Now he needed to manage the ones who are outside. And if you see, that's the current trend that he has. He's following the people who have some consequence, who are outside. They're not in parliament, and they're not governors or anything. They don't have an office. What I can say about, somebody has said that Kenya, we don't have a culture. Kenya, we have a culture. We have a culture of impunity. We have a culture of this rowdiness in groups, because we are not used to having free and fair elections, first of all. And like in the AUC, every country has a vote. So it's not a matter of how many people are going to come with you. Even if you come with 500 people, every country has one vote. So you only have one vote. So even if you carry all the parliamentarians, but the Kenyan culture, especially among the politicians, is that when we are in a group setup, like when they went to The Hague, we have to go with people. If we go with people, then it looks like we are winning, or we can fake it, fake it until you make it. So we just come together. That culture is something that is in Kenya. If you saw it in The Hague, they were also going with a group of people, So it's like, if you create this impression that, we are big group, we are here, that already makes you a winner somehow. So that's also what was done in The Hague. And okay, whatever happened in The Hague, the case never went anywhere. And at the back of, that impunity, let's just call it impunity, because that is what those leaders, those are our leaders. Those are the leaders we voted for, by and large. So what does it say about Kenya? That we are not professional. If these are the most elite members of our society whom we chose, what does that say about us as a country? That they're going there, they are rowdy, they are causing traffic jam, they are making noise, they have no code of conduct, And that is where even the other leaders are placing us now. We don't have a moral authority to come and tell, or let me say, Raila Ruto doesn't have the moral authority to really say anything about the conflicts or anything, because he lacks respect. They don't.
No, man, we don't work that way here. You carry up your hand, you wait a mic. So mute yourself or we remove you. Okay, Malia, go, finish your point. I think that guy interrupted you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we have lost respect, let's just put it that way, among other leaders, because the leaders who, like, if Kagame was to go with a group of people somewhere, would they behave the way? So when they look at us and see that these are the most elite members of our society, we have and the most elitists, the president himself, you can see how he carries himself. When the conflict started, he was already gone to make statements without even ascertaining what is happening. He's the first person always to make some statements, and then after that he goes and calls the president of France. So we have lost. But then since this guy entered into the office, we have, as a nation, where we were when Uhuru was on the seat, we went down a lot, and we don't have respect from other, and we lack the moral authority, and we've lost the respect of other countries and heads of state. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Malia Davis, for that wonderful
Kuna mtu na recognize as
submission.
Raila
And
Amolo
really,
Odinga
thank you so
amepigania
much. It
Kenya ya
shows
kutosha.
how Kenyans
Baba
live, and
amepigania.
it speaks a lot
Lakini
aloud when you're outside there. Thank you so much for that. And I think it's a lesson learned well. And I know this generation is learning going forward and our next step. Redemptor, go ahead, then Paul Mboya, then governors, in that order as we give other people mic.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the space. I think I will disagree on the first point and say this generation needs to unlearn, not to learn. There are things that our generation has passed down to the younger generation, and they're very purposeful in saying they want to do things differently. I think I would say the diplomacy part has been handled well. The geopolitics has been handled. Since yesterday, there's been a lot of feedback. What we shy away from is the human relation. And Kenyans are so smart that they quickly go to the academic arguments because we are very losers. We don't like to lose. And I know we don't like to lose because of the kind of resources that were used for this bid. If somebody was so confident they can win, then we have a man from Tigania who wore the same sweater. We have the other lady called Toto who became the women rep without any funding. So if you're confident in that you're here to represent the people, then you don't need money. At least not the kind of money. Hannah was here and talked about Baba kubebewa simu. I wanted to correct that and say Baba anabebeangwa simu kila saa. I mean, it's one of those things that you notice a lot about him, that he's very close with his security protocol. The groupie thing is, I think, let me just start by saying what lost was pride and what won was humility. And we had been here talking about pride comes before a fall. I've seen people who, I think I've seen a comment about Gen Z should not be sending emails. Yet I've had people keep repeatedly say those emails have no impact. The Gen Zs have no impact. I think this is denial speaking. And I would want to say that the Gen Zs won yesterday. Whether they were directly involved in whatever happened, they won in the sense that they were actively sending the message of defeat. Ya kufilisha watu kimnadho. Look at us. And they took pictures and they were there. And they lost an opportunity not to show how unified they were. And I think it's Malia who has talked about how it was so obvious who had taken Raila to Addis. Maybe even against his desire. So the Gen Zs won yesterday and they won perception. And if you think they lost, I want you to go to Condell. These young people, I looked at those clips and they were the Gen Zs of Condell, the ones that are a blank slate, the ones that are just coming to when it comes to political awakening. And so they went there to win. They had been lose. So they flipped the script without getting instructions from anyone. And they started chanting Ruto must go. And I keep talking about the energy and human interactions because even as we talk about the politics, the diplomacy, the blunders, we continually continue to ignore the human relations that are going on in this country. The human relations are so badly damaged that the leaders of this country have decided we are one big block and we are better than you, we are richer than you, and there's no exception in this behavior. There's no opposition, there's no ODM, they are just one happy family. And that's the human behavior I'm talking about and human relations. So when they went to present themselves to Africa, they were a divided house. The citizens were left behind and the leaders went to Addis. How can the world not see that? And I'm not saying this is why they won or lost. That has been captured well. For me, it's a message that the energy of the young people that we saw in June will never be matched by any group of politicians. It doesn't matter how much money they have. Because I say this because when you saw them singing nyimbo za Tawala Kenya, Tawala Africa, they were so lame. The energies they were tired, they looked tired. And yet the young people of this country right now, when they mobilize, they have the energy we saw in South Africa. When the young people were agitating for the end of apartheid. So let's not beat about the bush and do a lot of PR, image repair and everything. Hii ni kuanguka flat on the face because we have a president who just last week or 2 weeks ago told us he has a PhD and said I have never lost and went to count the positions he has held. And so this was his win. Why bother going like Mali had said? Why not? No, I think it was Hannah. Why not even pretend that you're not the one endorsing? Why use so much resources that you make news in Tanzania, that our MPs were being pictured? And I want you to think for 1 minute that if the story of Addis was told without a single word being uttered, if you just presented the pictorial evidence of what went down, it will just speak opulence, arrogance, pride, entitlement, and it has nothing to do with being a leader. Given Kenyans like to say we are special, we have a special place in the region, we are what, we say it a lot, and it could be true, but you don't show it. And that's what they did. They went to show, look, we are the Kenyans you hear about. And you can continue arguing until you're blue in the face about how the Gen Z did not affect, unless in your heart of hearts you have no spiritual thing inside you. Because in the last 6 months, there are mothers, fathers, uncles, brothers who keep saying, may they fall, may they cry like we cried. So if you don't believe in karma, if you don't believe in the justice, people have been uttering the words. I wasn't there. I didn't even have an opinion about these elections because I didn't want to get vested in what happened in New York. And now we are seeing all the experts are coming to give politically correct explanations. Look, you failed because you are in it for the wrong reasons. And let's just leave it. That's not, even if we make all these interpretations, analyses, what you're doing in those analyses, you're leaving the Kenyans behind. Kenyans are very much part and life to everything that pertains them. So if they keep telling you, stop using our money. We don't have money capitation in schools, but you have money to go to Addis. And I saw the arguments. No, they sponsored themselves. Okay, good. So you can sponsor yourself to Addis. Go and look for all the children who didn't have food last week and feed them. Go and look for all the children who don't have shoes to go to school in your constituency and sponsor them. So let's continue to do what we do as Kenyans. We are very analytical, and you have a right to go on your lane and argue the politics that you understand. But I'm always here to humanize this conversation and say this was about pride coming before a fall, and we are going to see many more like this, where the almighty dollar is not going to make a difference when people say they don't want something. So there's a lot of helter-skelter that is going on right now, but I think all the sides of the divide need to take a breather. They need to breathe. We need to stop writing these articles. They're not helping, and just accept, you know what? Kenya presented a candidate to the EU and they lost. All these other explanation, oh, it's not fair how East Africa is done. Oh, you know, Anglophone countries and Arab and religious divide. No, let's just for once accept we went to the higher playing field. And I think I've overtalked on this topic because I had a space yesterday about it. But I'm just saying I'm here as usual to hold a brief for the young people who told this enigma, this heroic leader of this country, you betrayed us. Those words have not been taken back. They were whispered, they were shouted, they were cried. Baba, you betrayed us. And they are saying, okay, because you betrayed us, you lost. What you do with that information, how you interpret it is up to you. But it has been said it's one of the factors that is going on, along. And just like anybody who goes to win something, even football, if you support a team, people have committed suicide because of football. So people are vested, and I want to say, Paul, for those ones who have lost. But what lost was pride, and what won was humility. And I hope our leaders can just humble themselves and come back to their senses and realize they're not there because of themselves. They were elected by the people. There's a mic that is must continue to win. They must continue to apply the energy they have. It is admirable. It is refreshing. And they're like children playing with a snake. You can tell them how dangerous a snake is, but there's
how we relate with our neighbors. And Yakundi says the timing and the motivation for Raila candidate was wrong. So everything set up against Kenya, the manner we campaigned was inappropriate because of the focus more on grandeur as opposed to diplomacy. And there's a question, and this I think this is the pertinent question coming from one of our listeners. I think he's in the Mashinani, and he's asking the question moment to reposition himself, reclaim his authority, lead the opposition with renewed purpose. If Raila is to soldier on, then we must acknowledge the reality his political brand has suffered. The EU rejection is a signal that the old ways of doing politics are no longer enough in Africa. So we saw through the theorics, the power play, and the failed diplomacy, and Kenyans saw it too. So I'll leave it there. Over to you, Hill.
As Watchdog and Paul Mboya, I see you, Redemptor. I'll give you mic. Don't worry. So let us go to governors. Then Paul Mboya, you've been here for a while. Academia, see you, and other people as we give other people mic. Go ahead, governors.
Okay,
Watchdog, one another minute. Not Paul Mboya. Governors, Watchdog. Your mic. You have a mic. You have a mic, bro. And this is the problem. People come here, they go to their stories. When you give them a mic, when you drop them, they complain on writing. Oh, we don't give us mic. Oh, you don't want us to talk. Paul Ubaya, go ahead.
yeah, thanks, Hilary. I want to say that what happened in Addis is a shame to Kenya. Stop their pride and showing off It looked like a game, but that same thing has come to hurt the country in the candidature. Something that you would see in the election. All those politicians who have been making noise on media, on streets, on microphones about the candidature of Raila, who are not supposed to make any noise, even the president. Now, there's a lashback about the president talking about the Gazaland issue, the Israeli issue, talking about the Somalis and the Al-Shabaab and the terrorism that was happening, talking about Macron and the issue of DRC. He should have done that as him. Then we have the Foreign Affairs CS and the High Commissioners talking about this thing diplomatically, like Raila, separating Raila's candidature from the state and the government. Let me say from the government, and have it like a state issue, not the government being involved and including the party politics into a continental arena. That's something that has really shamed the country. And the leaders not learning humility when Gen Z were calling them out has become a very big problem. Now we have MPs calling for EAC to leave AU. To go where? They did not even learn the humility. What I expected from them now was to say, go shake hands and be happy for the people who have won, and tell them, ladies and gentlemen, this time is yours, next time give us. Now, how do you ask for cessation right now to get away from AU just because you lost? Then what about next time? Even if we don't get out, who will have the confidence to trust a Kenyan for such a continental position after our MPs embarrassing the whole country like this? How can they trust a Kenyan again? How can we have people who go for an election with only one side in mind, that we are going to win? What do you think the other people feel? That it has just to be a win. And then they also have the confidence, insisting that I've already talked to so and so and we are sure of 39 votes. Then what is the sense? Because they will bring foreign influence. That's why our president is being called a puppet. They will bring foreign influence into these other countries. You know what has played. And I don't know. You know what has played. And I don't know what has happened to the current government. These people are downplaying foreign policy. This candidature was something that should have been handled as a diplomatic issue in terms of negotiation and saying how we can be able to formalize and work with these other countries and make Africa a better place. It is not about chest thumping and making Kenya stand up there as if we took AU alone, then Kenya was enough for Africa. And the other problem that are still arising, which even the president is still saying that Africa lost. But let me tell you one of the things that made me hate this candidature of Raila to AU. One of the things that made me hate this candidature of Raila to AU. Over years, the Rutos, our president, and so
Asante
many
sana.
MPs have always
As usual,
abused
mi ni Kennedy
Raila
Songa
and say
Songa.
that he is the worst president
Na
Kenya can have. Then why do we export the worst for the country to be the best for Africa? How can that happen? And they have been abusing him in the media, abusing him in all form of media spaces. The rest alone really pissed me off, and I was not very happy about it. And all the MPs who surround him, they are misusing Raila. I can only say it in Luo very well. Giloko Raila Lau Yuach. And it is paining because they are using him as a bait to get what they want, not what the country wants. And the other thing that happened here ex- and people refused it. People refused Mtuetu. They were not. And diplomats should be left to handle diplomatic issues. The AUC chair, I don't think it is a political thing. This is almost a ceremonial position. Not work if people can see our internal politics and see how shit it is. We were selling the country. Raila was just like a placeholder for the name Kenya. We were selling our country, but we showed them that we do not even have structures of work. A whole president campaigning for a candidate, instead of doing his things, we have a cabinet secretary of foreign affairs doing nothing. We have high commissioners who are not even stationing their desks for people to come and talk and probably give a word or even talk on behalf of the country. They left it and they are handling it like a village politics by election. It is very embarrassing. And putting a lot of money for something that did not deserve that money at all. It did not deserve that much money. And then we still do blame game. Instead of just saying we accept, we concede defeat, shake hands, appreciate those people, tell them we want to learn your ways so that next time it is ours. And another one is saying that now we need to leave AU, we need to cut down. This is so embarrassing. And it is not something that should happen again. And the rest of the year is going to be very tough politically, because some of the MPs who wanted Raila to win were going to manipulate the public by saying that we supported him and he now has something to eat for himself. So give us because we gave him. Unfortunately, that population that was being manipulated like that is now gone, and they will never get that opportunity again. And the entire continent is now awake, and there are no people who made a lot of noise on internet like the Kenyans regarding the AU seat. Majority of it being worse, pretending like and behaving like we deserve it more than any other person. If Kenya deserved it and Raila deserved it more than any other person, what was the essence of election? Why do we want to force people on things that they don't want, and then see that they are the ones who we now think that they are the ones who are losing more because they did not take our candidate? That kind of pride should stop. We cannot be like that. It should not happen. We should not be the kind of people who are being seen to be chest thumping everywhere. It is just about show off. Diplomacy dead, totally dead. Foreign policy dead. We treat people like we do not need to have continuity with them after that. And you know, the worst thing that is happening is these politicians are just thumping at home, and Kenyans are in all these nations. Now, let me give you one more thing, last thing, as I conclude on why I think even Kenya might have lost this seat in a terrible way. In the last few years, after the finance bill, government did not mind about pushing taxes to companies. A lot of companies closed. These companies came from the countries that we were asking to vote for us. But you'd hear one of the MPs telling the companies that if you cannot pay taxes, you can relocate to Tanzania and then import those things or export them duty free to Kenya. And then you are wondering, some of these company leaders have direct contact with their executive and the people in the countries that we were asking to vote for Raila. And with this kind of embarrassment, even just before Raila they went in for the elections. 77 companies were he could not be able to take himself out. And now they will weaponize this thing and use it as a pawn. Even if he does not contest in 2027, he will not be able to shout because they wasted billions on him and they will expect a favor. Our internal politics is as a place where if they don't have somebody to abuse, then they can't win. So they have already made the person to abuse so that they can win. They were looking for the biggest one to abuse. Anyway, Hillary, it is a very sad thing. Our country has. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul Boy. I see. After after Paul. Academia, you can go ahead, then African, okay, Africa Pope. That is Martin Mugwanja. Academia, you here?
Yes, I'm here, Hillary. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, the state of the nation after AU bid, what next? One, the politics, the normal politics will just continue to play, and the interplay will always be the same. So I don't see the difference. They will regroup to form a force for 2027. They're already on the campaign mode for 2027. I don't want to go into why Odinga failed AU. And I have no reason if you don't agree with any other athlete and they compete outside. You see how Kenyans come together when one of our own is participating in Olympic or any other. So I think beyond beyond Kenya, to some extent, we cannot extend our anger to the neighbors and the rest. I think that to me is not something that I would support any Kenyan. Forget about whether it's Raila or even Amina Mohammed. So Odinga did not fail because of the Gen Z and all that. There are geopolitical dynamics at that stake, and it is a political. Anything political, there are very little you can unless you participate directly to that process. So if like it is only the president who vote, then we have some of the countries in Africa are worse than Kenya, and you cannot say what is happening in Kenya. Some of them are worse than what we do, way worse than. So they don't even look at what we do here. They serve their interest. And it goes into the regional, whether it is francophones or anglophone countries, and you saw what happened for the first round, second round, moving forward, because it is politics. So nobody should blame. And this is what happened even for Amina Mohammed. Because if we give reason why Raila failed, and we fail to recognize why Amina failed, and then we focus on this one, we must also be very objective. And that does not mean anybody supporting. For me, I supported him to be there as a Kenyan. And any other person who would have gone there, I will always support a Kenyan. But when we come here is where I have a problem. I may differ with him with the things on the ground, but once he has left the country to fly the Kenyan flag, I have no option but just to say or wish them well. So I think what will happen that we are afraid of is that Raila is likely to work with Ruto moving forward. Because look, Kenya is tribal, and I don't see where we are going to break that wall. We may pretend to say that we are not going to be, but that's how people are going to work. Because one, we are going to vote along the parties, and many a time people are going to vote from the MCA to the president. So anybody who is in central that is going to go against Regade is likely to lose, and therefore the party that is Regade is going to form will attract many candidates. As a result of that, they are likely to vote those people. So once that is done, it means the person is likely to vote for the MCA, to vote for the MP, to vote for the women rep, to vote for the governor and the Senate, and eventually vote for the president, because this is Kenya. And that will replicate itself in other parts of the country. So what is the way forward? The way forward, if there is another third force that must neutralize these people, either the Kenyans or the Gen Z movement as a movement, they either decide to come together and form a party or a coalition for all young Kenyans to face the old politicians. But if we just talk and think that there is something that is going to happen, or we can challenge them at the ballot, we will find ourselves doing the same thing. And by 9th or 10th August 2027, we will be back here complaining what went wrong, why did we not get it right, and all that, and the circle continues. So those are the things that people are afraid to say, and we are blinded to the fact that we think that there is a miracle somewhere that is going to happen with the voting pattern. It is not going to work, at least not for now. But I hold that view. Somebody may hold a contrary to that, because politics is a different thing. When people go to vote, when the real politics starts, then a lot of things will change. But for now, we can anticipate or predict what might unfold moving forward. But party to ascend to power, not going to vote independent candidate to achieve that. We need a political formation to capture power. We have already had existing political parties. I'm very sure in Luo Nyanza, it will be almost possible for more than half to be elected independent or a new party formed apart from ODM. And that will go to the western side, that will go to the eastern side, that will go to the central side, and maybe northeastern and central, and Okambani, and coast. So if we are aligned, we are alive to that fact. Cloud, these people, we are going to beat them. The question is how? And until we are able to answer that, we are not going to beat these people. So let us live to that fact.
Thank you, Academia. Thank you for your submission. I just want to make a few things clear too. I think there is a lot about the foreign, the diplomatic downfall. I think Kenyan foreign policy is in a free fall. Let's agree on this. It's marred by miscalculation, weak alliances, as many said, strategic blunders. I think instead of leveraging on opportunity, the country has repeatedly stumbled on the global stage, turning a promising prospect into diplomatic strategy. The approach was marked by, many said, by arrogance, poor Kenya regional influence is shrinking and its credibility is eroding. It is positioned in African affairs of a passive observer. I think the current approach to diplomacy lacks depth and foresight, favoring grandstanding over substance and optics over real influence. I think the consequence of this failure extends beyond the lost diplomatic battle. Kenya is increasingly sidelined in the global discussion. Its economic and security interests are being compromised. Effective foreign policy requires an understanding of the power dynamic and negotiation, strategic position, qualities that have been sorely lacking in this leadership and their foreign policy partners. The urgent question now is, how does Kenya recover from this? How does the country rebuild a diplomatic stature, regain lost credibility, and also reclaim its influence on Africa and global stage? I think this is what we need to also to look at from the other perspective. Thank you. I'll hand over to you, Hillary. I don't know who was next on the mic. I think there are two hands up that are up. Snoopy Kenya has her hands up. What do you? I give you the mic. Thank you.
Snoopy, go ahead. You have a mic.
So it's really great to hear different approaches as to why Raila lost. But one point that someone made and said that, they're upset because someone misled Raila, and made a fool of him throughout this process. I find that very short-sighted. He's not an idiot. Nobody's holding his hand to, these charades and these escapades. He is doing it with full knowledge of what he wants. I have a theory. I think that when Raila, started out, he really was for Kenya. He wanted us to win, and he really did do a lot of things that we can truly be proud of today. But I think at some point, maybe during Kibaki or after, I'm not sure when, he realized that all his efforts truly don't materialize, truly don't reflect. And so he became a guy who can bargain, he can trade, and he can use his large block to get what he wants. Can I blame him? I am not sure I can. I think in such a tribal environment, it has forced him to be that person. To be the person that now I've tried to be the better person. I've tried to raise this country from what ails us, and it has been impossible. So then what do I do with the chips that I have been given? And that is what has become Raila. He's not an idiot. He knew that Ruto was using him for this position, and he still pressed on. There was a position before then, I'm not sure if it was an AU or EU position that he actually had, and Ruto made him lose it, or he fight him. I'm not sure what the story is. So there was really a way that he had gotten himself out. He had paved his way, carved his way, and what did Ruto do? Messed it. And then when Gen Z happened, he had to sneak back and try to bring him back into this horrible horse that has ruined his legacy in the worst platform ever. And then we can speak about the diplomatic view. Like I've heard so many views as to why we blundered and why we failed. Yes, true. But Ruto's government hasn't really focused on diplomacy as it concerns Africa. As soon as our guy won, he went on an escapade in the West and in Dubai and the rest to buy friendships because you couldn't acknowledge him as the king he is in Africa. So he went for the best and the biggest, and he forgot where it mattered. And when he won in those places, he couldn't ignore giving the middle fingers to others that he thought low. He would sit on Biden's chair and we will brag about it for over and over and over. We get these trinkets from Dubai or US or wherever else, and we wanted, or he wanted to show out, look how great I am, and look how I'm loved by the people, quote unquote, that matter. And to assume that that would not resonate with the voters for such a chair, it's ridiculous. We spit on them and then expect that they're just going to turn around and bow to this bully. It's not how the world runs. And even now, when we realize that, we're not having introspection. Rather, we're blaming, we're gaslighting, we're seeding, we're moving away. It's such a tantrum environment for a country that pretends to be a leader. Like on one moment we'll sit and talk ill of what's going on in DRC. And then on the other side, instead of having these reflection moments and how we move forward to fix these issues, we just want to, no, it's not me, it's others. It's surrounding himself. It was just a joke. And it's just, it's unfathomable that someone with that much experience winners, because he wanted to win, not unless we'd be told to spend these billions just on an errand to not win. And then the last point is someone raised and talked about how great it is for, Kasmel and others to get on that, forum and take selfies and show out that you look up, I've achieved that. I don't think that that's how we win. And that's how we change this narrative that we're so much trying to change. We want to be our own, because right now Kasama cannot say things that are of his own. They have to reflect what Raila or his handlers are under the ODM. And I don't think that that's what we want. We want to move to a point where, as youth, our own leadership should matter. And how do we get there? We get there from what the last speaker just said. Let's form our own coalition. Gachagua was able to do that, and others have been able to do that, or are trying to do that, whether we're talking about Kalonzo and others that are rising. When do we get to do that? I think there was a vehicle that we expected would help us do that. That was Marara's vehicle, and that crumbled very quickly. But can we learn from what the mistakes were there, pick ourselves together and really band together into this awesome coalition that gets us to that negotiating table? Because Samuel is not negotiating. He's not leading. He is a sheep that was swallowed. He has no power. The power is not to see him standing on the sidelines and taking pictures with the leaders with so much despite. The leaders that he spoke against before June 2024. That is not winning. There's no freedom. There is no deciding our future that we so desperately need to decide. How we decide it is how we band together. We have the numbers. During 2024 showed that we have the numbers and we have the will. Can we leverage that and do the same? Have the youth, let there be a coalition from the youth that will join these people and negotiate our piece of that table. And we do not have time. We do not want to join these, spaces and have this pent up energy and have these deliberations or with the mess that we continue to see. I don't think that Raila will, come back and sit. He's found something that wins for him. He's going to continue to agitate. He's going to continue to poke holes. Tomorrow he's going to say something so bad about Ruto, waiting to be called back and patted on the back and brought back in line. That's going to be, patting back until 2027, while the rest or majority of us are waiting for him. Oh my God, he's going to come back and save us. There is nobody that's coming to save us. It is us. And we cannot just talk about it. We have to action it. And I'm thankful that Hillary has created a platform that allows us to deliberate. Can we move forward from just deliberation to actual action? So that maybe in the next space, we're thinking, how do we form this coalition? Where do we start? How do we present that, inclusivity? That a youth in Timbuktu, in Kisumu, in Turkana feels accepted as a youth, as a participant. I think that's where we need to get, so that when they're reaching out to us, we have something to bargain for. Because if we continue to get swollen, we continue to be led and mentored practice. So let's make it happen, guys. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. That was really.
It's quite unfortunate for me that it's only come when the election has been done. I wish when we send these emails, Manze, it's not a good thing. It's not the right way to do it. When it is a national issue, let us hold it as a national issue. The other time, there is a senior person from Netherlands was to visit Kenya. I think is to come to Kenya. And now we are sending emails, don't come to Kenya. Why don't you look at what is the end goal to this? What is the repercussion of doing this as a nation? We might be doing it because we hate our president, William Ruto. But what is the end goal of this? Even if William Ruto is not there, the damage has been done and has been done. It can't be rectified. So I really want to talk to the Gen Z. When it's a national issue, let us take it as a national issue. I remember that sometimes when it's always a war between this banter between Kenya and Nigeria, we do so well. But when it's a national importance issue, like this of AUC, we ought to be united and push agenda of Raila Odinga or that our candidate to win that seat. Is not about an individual when it comes to that. Then let me talk about Uhuru factor, guys. With all due respect we have for Uhuru, Uhuru is a man that is respected international, and he has an influence. You know, when there was war in Congo, Uhuru was given this mandate to go and bring peace. He's known, okay, but we have not had his voice in all these. And he told us that Raila is his leader. If Raila is your leader and is now going for the bigger seat, why don't you support him? He went mute on all these, and I heard yesterday he was in Ethiopia, even to say, hey, my brother is here, we are going to support you. He's doing nothing, and we know the kind of influence he has when it comes to that. You know, then let's talk about the issue of, you know, as a country, Kenya has always been touted as a hub of peace, okay? But what has been happening in the recent days when you get a high-ranking official from another country being abducted in our own country? What happened to Kizza Besigye of Uganda? What happened to the lady from Tanzania? It's just messing with our country image when it comes to issues of peace and what. So if you can't protect your own, or you can't protect other people in your country, how will you protect the people of other country that there is a war? You got. So it's also upon as a country, our leaders, especially the president, to do surgical to do something about it and find a solution to this. We can't be leaving everything to like everything is normal, but there is a huge problem. Raila did a big mistake to me when he resigned. He said he resigned. People are saying, oh, maybe William Ruto pushed him. No, but he resigned. You know, if we have given you a job, like us who run business and we employ people, and you come and resign, and you tell me, oh, I've gotten maybe a bigger job, I'm going somewhere else, then you resign without my goodwill. Then again, you want to come back, oh, I now want to be the manager of the company. No, you know, I have to look you with the third eye, which is not good. Raila is resigning. I know he always have this thing. His DNA is that of activist. His DNA is that social fighting for the rights of the people. You feel when people are good, are okay. So maybe thought Kenya is in a bad state, so he came back to fight for Kenyans, but he left.
Gavana, umekanyaga network yako ama miti ndio sikusikii?
Yeah, we lost governor. Now we can go to
Bado namwona na hang hapo. Redemptor, you had something to chime in before Victor?
Yeah, very briefly, and I really appreciate, I think, Paul Mboya and
So Raila
Snoopy's.
resigning, for me, it was a mistake for him. He ought not to have done it because
Gavana, nini inafanyika bwana? Maybe he was talking under the, but we could have not hear him. So maybe we'll get him back. I don't know what happened because he went quiet and again came in. So Redemptor, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was responding to first appreciating what Snoopy had to say, and also Mboya, a very sober and also very articulate perspective on how the turnover. Who is Raila? Was he always like this? And you look at the young Raila, who reminds us of the Gen Zs right now, and then you look at the Raila who challenged his own father and went on to be the man who always challenged oppression and spoke for something. And when I read the remark that about him licking his wounds, I don't think he has anything to lick wounds about. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions we continue to have about who Raila is. I think his troops are the ones who are licking their wounds. And this is just my very quick observation, even as we remember go to Bondo and all that. We transferred our national politics to the African arena, and we carried it out, and people even were making very mean remarks. Is he going to, even the remark about this is the first time he's conceding? I think that's a remark in bad taste, because truly we've had unfair elections in this country, and I'll confess here, I've always supported the bid for Raila until the Gen Z movement started, because something new had happened in this country. So even as we debate about who Raila is, there's this element of people assuming that he's at the beck and call of the people who follow him. And someone has rightfully said that the people around Raila are more afraid of his retirement. And my last observation is, I don't know if anyone remembers when Moi was retiring and he was getting in a helicopter, and Sally Koskei standing there and crying. And to date, I always wonder what she was crying about. And so I think that's a moment we are at, where he's ideally supposed to get on a chopper and go somewhere, but people cannot let him go. So this transferring the scenario in Kenya to Ethiopia, I think it's in bad taste. Will continue, and I say the betrayal of the Gen Z, and I say that very strongly. Had he stayed away from this fight, people would now come and knock on his door and say, this is the position we want you to be. But I feel like personally, like he meddled in something that was bigger than him, something that was not his to meddle with, because he had served this country diligently, he had done well for himself. And his troops are now bringing to front, we are now friends with the other side. They're not hiding it. And I think that's where the problem is. Thank you very much, and very great insights. I yield.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, Victor or Abdi, you want to say something before Abdi? Before Victor?
Let Victor go and then let Dr. Milton go. Thank you.
Okay, then Josephine. All right, go. Victor. Victor mara ya kwanza. Victor MDP. Can you hear us? Mm. Mr. Victor. All right. Dr. Milton, you want to say something? Then Josephine.
I just want to say that what we need right now, there is enough of the after loss, the shocks and everything. But I think there is an important thing that we need to be alive to, and that is how we move forward as a country. We now know that William Ruto wanted to use this as something to blackmail the country about, or and to even when they are running for an international job. That is what happened. So Raila got that. Should happen is that Raila will come out, get back into his element, and first apologize to the Gen Zs, and two, speak against what is going wrong in the country. That is not to mean that Gen Zs will forget the betrayal, but that will mean that Raila will stand for good governance, and he will have given the country an opportunity to send out William Ruto and his administration home. Because right now, what we are having and what we have witnessed in Addis is embarrassing to the country. I don't think anybody knows what our foreign policy is. And everything that is happening is just unfortunate. The last point I want to make is this: there are people who say that a lot of what has been said, or what Gen Z said, the emails and everything did not matter. I want to tell you this. We are in a global village and in a world where what you say on social media is followed by all and sundry. And nobody can ignore what has been going on in Kenya, and nobody is going to trust anybody or anything about Kenya today. That is just the truth of the matter. Let us stop sugarcoating things and saying that all we have to do is to support anybody in the name of being Kenyan, even when we know that that opportunity they are seeking is not in national interest. The only reason why William Ruto and made Raila Odinga a candidate was because they wanted to diffuse the pressure and manage the Gen Zs by busting their bubble. Because the moment Baba was taken like this, then his base was confused and didn't know what to do. And right now, we must make it very clear that we have not forgotten that the fight in how services will be delivered to the people, how good governance will become part and parcel of regardless of which tribe the leaders are. That is our business, that is our focus. Anything else is a sideshow and it must be called out in the strongest terms possible. That is why I am saying in conclusion that if Raila Odinga comes back from Addis and he starts calling out the government and says William Ruto's administration is one that should be sent home, the people of Kenya, the Gen Zs, and everybody needs to be together in that fight because that is our main business. Let me yield at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Milton. We go to Josephine quick, and then I see Westin hand is up, and then we get back to you. Thank you. Josephine, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Hilary, for hosting this space. As usual, you always do us good, especially when you give us an opportunity to speak about the state of the nation. Yes, let me start with also saying that I actually personally I was in mixed feelings, and eventually I made up my mind because I told myself it was all about our country, not about Laila. And at a particular point, I remember I tweeted severally trying to say the same, saying that Laila must win because we cannot afford to have an international loser in our country. And why was I saying this? Because apart from that, I have experienced being in the outside our country, and I remember being acknowledged so much. Any place I entered and introduced myself from, I am from Kenya, people would celebrate and say this country where peace always prevails. But today, the country that which was well known for peace is no longer known for that because of just few elements. Second, I had the feeling of if Raila wins this seat, then Ruto will diarrhea on top of our heads, everybody, because he had already told us that he cannot be advised by people whom he doesn't understand their level of education while he holds a PhD. And he had been going around trying to say that he is a mastermind of politics, so nobody can remove him. Basically, he didn't see the power of people actually campaigning against, and he thought maybe by his voice and having so many MPs going to Addis Ababa would change anything. And he felt that also what we've been speaking here in the X space, it was just something in the social media and it was not making an impact until it hit him realizing that Laila had to lose that position. One, it's an embarrassment to our nation. I'm feeling bad as a citizen because we lost. But again, I'm also feeling good because now if only he won, Raila won that seat yesterday, actually today we wouldn't have anything to say because Ruto would be actually telling us anything that he feels like telling us around and tossing us left, right, center. So what's the way forward then? The truth is, we have to stand on our ground, and they come up with our own policies. But again, we need to remember one thing. We cannot win on our own. The Gen Zs and the millennials only. We cannot win on our own. We need to have a strong coalition. And we need to push Raila if he needs to be pushed to do what he's supposed to do and speak what he can speak. However, we should not hold on him so much because he can also choose to work with the Ruto. And if he decides to work with the Ruto, then that means again, to us, we have to go an extra mile so that we are able to actually win the election. However, personally, I am not for us to wait until we have an election. A time has come. We need to do away with all this bad governance and all this pride of insulting people and telling people they cannot advise you. The same people who elected you, put you in place, and now you are telling them you do not understand their level of education, so they cannot actually do anything to you. The truth is that the only person who can be declared with a monopoly of knowledge and monopoly of all wisdom is God alone. But any other human being who is a mortal can still lose his memory and just become another useless person who can never do anything, who can never think about anything. So the earlier President Ruto realizes that actually it's not about education, but it's about one, using the opportunity where necessary and gathering any information that you get, regardless of how you think this person is minute, and make good use of that information. Tip it, use whatever you can use it to build the nation. Whatever you cannot use it, just discard it and move on. But you can never declare that you have the monopoly of everything, you know everything, and you are the only person who can never be advised. So it's not about education. We also have an inborn wisdom which helps to rule, especially many people who used to rule in our African tradition. Actually, they were not educated, but they were using wisdom. So that's where Luto is losing it all. He needs to understand this. And as Kenyans, we need also to start strategizing, because right now he's already in campaign mode and they are still moving on. And I can see even people have started posting. I've seen just Oburu Odinga saying that Uhuru Kenyatta went to Addis Ababa to campaign against Ruto. I don't think somebody can stoop that low to go and start campaigning against somebody from his country, especially a senior person who has been a president. That cannot happen, because even that actually degrades that person. So I don't think Uhuru get to know when to strike within our country and when not to strike within the internationals. But whoever is saying that for us writing to the international communities and complaining was wrong, it's not wrong. Because what has been happening in our country, everyone has been silent. And why the purpose of us calling the internationals and writing to them was for them to let them understand that if there is any democracy and if there is any country which declares that they stand for democracy, they were supposed to be out and show that democracy in our country when our youth were being abducted and killed by a president whom we have elected and actually is sworn to protect our constitution.
Josephine, umekanyaga waya.
Lost
I
us.
don't know. I don't know what is happening, man. Maybe she's talking on the background. Okay, when you're back, you'll have a mic. Mr. Victor, you here now?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you. I've been on this space since the first speaker started, and I actually want to thank you, Hilary, for putting up this space. Actually, I'm not from Kenya. I'm a Nigerian, but since I have so much interest in the African development and politics, I've decided to say, okay, let me lend my voice and also be part of this discussion. For the purposes of bilateral relations, first I must congratulate the Federal Republic of Kenya for making it to the list of the contestants. I am of the opinion that losing in an election is a sign of victory and strength. So all the demerits that have been pointed out by past speakers are pandemics affecting most African countries, including but not limited to Nigeria or Kenya. So I want to align very strongly with the lady, one of the speakers, who said there are more to unlearn than to learn. It's a very strong message that we must. Oh, sorry, that's from my very beautiful daughter. There are more to unlearn, as a matter of fact, than to learn. So the major clog in the wheel of progress of most African leaders is how reckless they've been in showing off and in spending. When somebody mentioned that not less than 10 billion was spent, that questions the integrity of most African leaders, as a matter of fact. It sends a very bad message. Now look at it, the person who won did not spend so much, but at the end of the day, he won. But there are more of internal politics that plays out that most people don't know. So I want to round up by saying that the man who came out to contest the election gave it a try. There's no error in trying. So lastly, I want to say that as one African, I will urge each and every one of you listening that wherever you have programs that have to do with African development, my DM is very much open. I will be very much interested in participating. At the lower level here back in Nigeria, I'm an elected person and I know what plays out in politics. Internal politics are not what the eyes can behold. It is more of internal issues, compared to what you see outside there. So I want to thank you, Larry, for putting up this space. I'm very grateful to all the people who have discussed so far, who have learned their voices. Our points should be noted and they should be made. We should form a formidable front to ensure that some of these pandemics, some of these issues are addressed within African nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for your statement. We will go to Westin. His hand has been up, and then we cycle to Farah and Justice, and then we move in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdi. Abdi, I don't understand why we look at things in a cyclic fashion. I don't get it. Let me get you clearly. Raila Odinga, who is being accused of having abandoned Kenyans at the hour of need, when they wanted to bring this government down, he showed up the government, gave it a new lease of life. The government reciprocated and poured a lot of money in his campaign for the AU bid, which ended in a disaster. We expect the same individual to come home, hold a press conference, denounce William Ruto, and join the Gen Zs, I don't get that logic. I don't get it. So what makes you think that he's not going to abandon you at the next stage? What makes you think so? What makes you think that he's in it for himself, not for you? Why do you think he will be in it for you? So what if you had won the AU Commission chair? What if you had won? I think we must perish this Messiah complex. We must perish it. Raila Odinga is 80, for God's sake, is 80. Anybody who thinks about Kenya of tomorrow, of 50 years from now, cannot have Raila Odinga in the equation. That's logical. And if anybody's looking for heroes, they must look for new heroes. Or they make themselves heroes. They can't turn to Raila Odinga, a yesterday man, as a person you can count on to put in place Kenya of tomorrow. It can't happen. He has proven time and again that he's not in it for that kind of thing. Why don't we believe him? Is it because of a hatred for William Ruto? It's logical to be annoyed and to be angry. But what you do with your anger also counts. Otherwise, that anger could just destroy you. It's one thing to be annoyed with this government, to be angry about this government, and it's logical, it's compelling. But it's one thing to behave in an illogical fashion in our reaction to how this government is behaving. So that everybody who is opposed to this government is something we can tolerate, even when their history says something else. I don't get that. I really don't get it. And that's what I'm saying. It's important to have a philosophy. As a country, we don't have it. And that's why we mentioned foreign policy. We don't have foreign policy. Foreign policy is about thinking. You as a president, what do you want to achieve for your people culturally, economically, politically, and a whole host of those things? They will inform how you relate with other actors abroad. When you relate to the US, it's about your interests at home. And whose interests are those? For your people. You want to advance your people's well-being. There's nothing mumbo jumbo about foreign policy. In fact, we think foreign policy is something big. No, it's about domestic politics. So, if our domestic politics is so chaotic as it is, of course it will be on display in Addis. Why do we think it will be any different? Can you imagine Kagame going to Addis with the chaos that you saw in Kenya? Kagame. Rwanda going to an international stage with this kind of chaos? Can you imagine? You can't. Because at home they have wrapped it up. They have wrapped it up. They don't take the ill discipline and bad manners on the international. We do it. Because parochialism that I talked about. I don't like you, and that is it. It's not that you beat formation and stuff like that. And that's why we're midgets when it comes to where substance matters. So I'm saying this. I'm saying this. Please, for those who care about this country, let's work to ensure that there are certain values and principles and norms that people will be bound by, not personality cults, not Raila Odinga, not William Ruto, not Uhuru Kenyatta. These are personality cults. And they run on caprices and their whims and their interests. Raila Odinga will not reform Kenya. Whether he denounces William Ruto or not, he will not. And I don't know why we don't get that clearly. Secondly, if you write letters to countries abroad, you are not different from William Ruto and this political elite who thinks that there are people out there who will come to solve Kenyan problems, who thinks that have you been to Zimbabwe? What Mnangagwa is doing in Zimbabwe? Have you been to Zimbabwe? Have you been to Egypt? Al-Fatah al-Sisi is a dictator there. Have you been to Ethiopia, the seat of the AU, where genocide took place the other day against the Tigray people? Have you been there? So why do you think African leaders would refuse to vote for Raila Odinga because of human rights violations in Kenya? As if at home they don't commit these things. As if they don't abduct their opponents and dissidents. As if they don't lock up people for political reasons. The same things we're seeing in Uganda. Why do you think so? They don't care because they behave like William Ruto. Or you think they're different? They're not different. Is Museveni different from William Ruto? Is he? He's not. So it was what we have said, that Kenya is chaotic on the international stage and no one takes them seriously. Domestically, we're chaotic. Governor mentioned about Uhuru Kenyatta. I don't know whether he went to Addis, but why would you go to Addis as a former president? On the voting day and throughout this campaign, you've never made your position known, whether you support Raila or not. Of course, they will be suspicious while you are there, and they will be right to be suspicious of you. You are showing up on the D-Day, while throughout the campaign, you've never put in a word for this particular individual. So the likes of Uhuru Kenyatta, people are responsible for this lack of integrity in public life in Kenya. Those are the people. And we're giving them a free pass. These are the people. Even when he was campaigning for Raila Odinga for president, he never took Raila Odinga to his backyard and introduced me. Remind me, when was that? He never held his hand and took him to his backyard to say, because as somebody said, academia, this is tribal politics. And told these people, this is the person I'm rooting for. It was always about speculation. He never publicly held Raila's hand and introduced him to his backyard constituency. And we think that's normal. Is it normal? So when you say Raila Odinga will fall out with William Ruto, on what basis? On what basis? And yet William Ruto has put in everything for him and is appreciative of that. Let me remind you, academia said sometimes we shy away from tough questions. Did you people listen to Raila Odinga's speech during ODM prayer rally before he set off to Addis? Did you listen? There are things he said, very significant things for those who listen. The media will avoid those things because they're incandescent stuff. He relived his journey with William Ruto in as much as he didn't mention him. From 2002, 2005, the referendum disaster, 2008 disaster, how they were pushed out of government for opposing that Kibaki-led constitution, draft constitution, how they won elections. And then on the part of winning elections and being stolen, listen carefully. He said, kura iliibiwa kwa sababu ni mila yao kuiba, ni tabia yao kuiba. What was he referring to? What was he referring to? Who stole? Whose culture is to steal elections? Whose culture? To whom is second nature to steal elections? He was referring to the likes of Uhuru Kenyatta, Mwai Kibaki, Martha Karua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Rigathi, the beneficiaries of the 2007 stolen election. So you expect him to fall out with William Ruto because you're not listening to him. Because you can't link what his elder brother Oburu has written, or the bloggers, the allies of this world. You don't read those things and connect. They are telling you of the narrative in the run-up to 2027 elections. That narrative is building up, but we're not paying attention. We read our own things in what these people are doing. We ignore because we are too biased. We are too parochial. We are too simplistic. When things happen is when what has happened, but things have been building up. Like the disaster at the AU, people could see that there's guys who are not going to win that election. From the way they conducted them, those who cared to observe them keenly will say they will not win that election. But for some of us, because we listen to them, when they tell us they will win, we think they will win. No, it doesn't work like that. So please,
So Sherlock, yes,
yes,
as you
Abdi,
land, as
as
you
I
land.
learned,
What is the next now? What is next?
the
What is
next
next for us?
Hillary, the next, I don't know, because for me, it's about the mind, Hillary. And the mind is difficult.
And
It is the mind.
Sherlock. No, no, no. When you're saying that you don't know, then
Yes.
I think that's where we take it wrong because
No,
these people will just come and lead us, and when we don't
we
know, so
don't.
who
We
knows?
don't, because you
Mm.
see, Hillary, if I was talking to people in the countryside, that question will make sense because they would not have access to the kind of information we do. But for us on this platform, I expect us to have access to information, but I don't see that on display. That on this platform, we can still repose some kind of hope in.
All on notice, and I think the purge will start now. And I'm sure Ruto will fight with tooth and nail because all of them want to have the control of the House. If Raila plays smart, he could flip the balance and turn Parliament into real battleground against the executive. I think all this has to happen. Plan B One thing else that could happen, a return of the BBI. Word on the ground is that UDA is considering restructuring the BBI style constitutional amendment just to protect itself, but to offer Raila a deal that he can't refuse. A prime minister position, a classic Kenyan politics. When alliances break, the system bends to accommodate the new power plays. But will Raila take the bait after being played before Ruto? Is he willing to trust Ruto again? All these are the political equations that are coming up, I think, Weston. Thank you.
Okay, William, your hand is up. Then
Oh,
Farah.
sorry.
Thank you, Hilary. I just want to dive. I want to dive in and say the following: that for anybody to think that when Raila refers to people stealing elections, he's referring more to Kalonzo Musyoka, is referring more to Martha Karua, is referring more to Gashagua than to William Ruto. That of the social media spent our no dime to campaign against him. Therefore, the factor of the social media can never be undermined. And any person who thinks that anytime we converge here and converse on matter politics, the future of this nation, that we are wasting our time. The writing is clearly legible on the wall. These people have said clearly that our time, that we use our energy on the social media.
at ourselves. Let's stop looking for liberators, and let's stop looking for people who are going to save us. Moses aliyeko kwa River Nile waeke waende. We need to stop looking at ourselves as wananchi, because in reality sisi ndio wenye nchi. There's a Somali saying that says dulka wadatka dulka maha. A country is its people, not its lands. Bila mimi na wewe hakuna Kenya. So it's time we take up our responsibilities to these lands. Ni nini inahitajika kubadilishwa? Ni siasa. Anybody who offers themselves up and has characteristics of a good leader, tunasimama na huyo. They don't need to have a party, they don't need to haitahitaji pesa. Hata akiwa independent, that's the person we're going to vie. This is going to be us against them. Hamna mambo ya sijui nani atafanya nini. Literally, if you look even at how the media was reporting the AUC, they was clearly showing tribalism. Kwa sababu before the elections, they were in the mountain region asking Kinanderutu for their opinion, because they know every Kenyan would have said hatutaki ashinde. Then after they go to Kondele, so that it becomes wale wa Kikuyu walikuwa wanataka Raila ashindwe, Wajaluo wamehuzunika kuwa ameshindwa. So it becomes a tribal narrative. But in reality, the people of Kondele were not even saddened by Raila. They started singing Ruto must go. So we all have a common enemy across the country, irregardless of whether Raila is going to come back or not. To us, tulimwambia Agwambo kaa nyumbani, na sahi amerudishwa nyumbani. There is no difference to us. That's the reality. We need to start taking up responsibility. There are good people who have started offering themselves up for different roles and different positions. Just because he's not popular with you, it's not about you. It's about this country. And you cannot delegate your patriotism. That is something we need to agree upon. You cannot delegate your patriotism to anybody else. It's not Raila's responsibility to fight your battles. And it's not your responsibility to fight the whole country's battles. It's your responsibility to win your part in the relay. Hakikisha tu baton ukipewa, wewe kufia pati yako. Hii ingine tutakufa nayo. So Hillary, Abdi, Weston, la takhaf, don't lose hope. He, honestly, mali imefika, my boda guy was telling me, hii ni Mungu anatupigania. So Raila and all these other people, kaburi la sahau, and we move on. Thank you, guys.
I like your simplicity. It is not about these people, it's about us. And let us fight and let us move on. I thank you so much, Farah. I think that is a good reminder. Um,
Yeah, I also see a tweet from the political leadership, and they are trying to give us what is next. This is what DP Kindiki says. I urge Raila to work with Kenya Kwanza. Kindiki says Kenya will develop with unity. Gashagwa also tweets, I want Raila to come and fix Kenyan's issue. And Kalonzo says Ruto to blame Raila for Raila AUC loss. So there is this realignment, and everybody is trying to create and shape the narrative on what is next in the political scene. Thank you. Over to you, Hillary.
thank you so much. I see. Justice for all, then Wanda in that
I'll
order.
do, I'll do a very quick one because I think the gentlemen and the ladies that have spoken, I think they have done a phenomenal job to really look into this issue. I don't want to go back into repeating what I'd already shared earlier, but I'll probably give my simplistic answer, Hilary, on what I think will happen. I suspect what will happen and what I think should happen. So what next? I will look at it in terms of what I'm thinking is going to happen is that Ruto has, you know, just like another leaders we've had in the past, presidents as it were. We have the bad manners of creating positions for people. What I think is going to happen, he will find something that looks like big for Mzee to occupy so that it looks like he has really reached the peak that he has been looking to reach, and he will be somewhere else and he will be surprised. All of us will be here fighting and arguing and doing this, but they would have achieved something, allocate funds and have a little stupid budget to it, and they will be comfortable. That's what I suspect will happen. Now, what do I think will should happen as we move forward? What I think, Hillary and Abdi and Rose, what I think needs to happen moving forward, I think there is one thing that Kenya Kwanza needs to fix. We need to go back and look at it. What exactly is our foreign policy? What is exactly is our relationship, genuine relationship with our other brothers and sisters across the continent? Because we cannot continue going like this every year, in year in out, because this is really going to be messy. If they have the best interest at the heart, this is the time to assemble the real foreign policy experts. They come to the table and try to reevaluate. Are we really overrating ourselves? Are we putting ourselves as Kenyans on a higher pedestal than we actually really are in terms of the on the continent? How do our people, our neighbors, view us as Kenyans? This needs to be really given to the experts to address this, because, friends, we are not doing well when it comes to foreign policy. It's so shaky that nobody. I remember one guy who writes foreign policy articles, and of course, he's held a space. I remember hosting him one time, and he did tell us, and we asked him repeatedly, "What's Kenya's foreign policy?" And that is how dangerous this situation is, and that is what has really caused us. To the Gen Z, I'm gonna say this with again. I think we've been here. We've talked about our full support for the Gen Z, and we will continue supporting this. But I think it's about time. And Redemptor, you can take this message to the Gen Z. I think you hang out with them more than myself. Let us say the truth. We are more confused than we are being given credit. And I want to repeat that. And this confusion, it is actually going to lead us nowhere. Let me tell you why I'm saying this. I will qualify my points, please. Just give me a minute. Now, the people that never sided with President Ruto, because now we're talking about Raila did, but those who did not, whether it's Eugene, whether it's whatever, you said we don't want you. We've talked about even other politics. The Gen Z and the millennials, you have the energy to keep moving. But let me tell you, you cannot do it alone. Remember what then what do we do? Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I think we are on the top of the hour. I have two more things that we need to do. Number one, I'll read a few of your comments. Number two is a solidarity message for Dr. Kise Bisije. We have our friends from Uganda who are here, and I think we have to send a message all together. And that is one thing I was trying to say. I think we stand in solidarity, in unwavering solidarity with Dr. Besige, who is currently on a hunger strike at the Luzira prison, protesting his unjust court-martial charges, I think. His continued persecution is not just an attack on his individual freedom, but a grave violation of human rights, the rule of law, and economic principles. Dr. Bisinje has dedicated his life to the fight for justice, democracy, and the right of Ugandans. His resilience in the face of oppression is a reminder that struggle for freedom is not a crime, but duty of conscience. The use of military courts to try civilians is an accepted practice that must be condemned by all those who believe in justice and due process. Civilians belong in civilians' courts where transparency, fairness, and accountability are upheld. We call for his immediate release, for any charges against him to be addressed in proper legal framework, not through military intimidation. We urge human rights organizations, regional bodies, the international community to take a firm stand against the criminalization of political opposition and demand justice for all political prisoners in Uganda and Kenya. To Besije, we say you are not alone. Your courage inspires millions. Your sacrifice will not be in vain. We stand with you in the pursuit of justice, freedom, and democracy. Over to you, Hillary. And
Thank you
we
so
are
much,
asking.
Abdi. We are thinking towards the space tomorrow for freeing of Besigye. I think we're gonna do it, and there's a lot of requests from Uganda. I'm receiving a lot of requests. I think I'm gonna host a space specifically for free Besigye, and we talk about his life and everything. I've saved two MPs that contacted me, and they want us to host a space for that. So tomorrow, I hope we can do something at the same time because our time is the same. I'm gonna do it from 7 p.m. Kenya time. Thank you so much for reminding us that. And actually, I've been posting a lot of messages today because there's a lot of contacts that will tweet. His health is very bad and he's in jail and everything. Wanda, pick it up from there. And guys, if you can take 2 minutes going that way, we'll be. We have some few requests. Then at the top of the hour, we wind up today. Okay, Wanda, go ahead. Mwalimu Wanda, angalia connection zako. I think ni mbaya sana. Josephine, huku maliza, hebu maliza. Najua ajua. Can you finish what you were saying? Shall I'll give you a mic. Don't worry. Honorable, Ken Odero, follow each other so that we can see you all the time. Okay, go ahead. Wanda may drop. Josephine, go ahead.
Thank you, Hilary, once
In two
more for
minutes.
giving me the opportunity. So I was just winding up, trying to say that we need to make up our minds and lay down our foundations and our strategies on how to approach the election. Because one thing I'm looking forward and seeing is that after the ruling of the court, as much as many people would think Laila is going to still continue holding on to Ruto's government, there will be wrangles between the government and the parliament because of who is the majority and who is the minority after the ruling of the court. And also, once the opposition realizes that Azimio had the majority, then they would want to take their positions. That is, they would want even to take the position of the Speaker of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly. And the things will start boiling all over again. The noise will be coming up again. So we need to prepare ourselves and plan ourselves very well. How are we going to tackle this? And how are we going to front our people and support them religiously? With or without money, we stand with them so that we change the whole narrative come 2027. Thank you so much, fellow Kenyans. And let's keep moving. But we need to always remember to separate our national issues with the international issues. It's very important that we consider that when we are fighting. However, we should not state actually saying the truth and saying this is what's happening to our nation and we don't like it. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. I believe on say the truth. Thank you.
Thank you so much Josephine. Najua bado unasimama Mombasa, tutakuita hapo kuja utueleze yale ambayo unapanga. Pika tu mdomo, lakini tunashukuru ya kwamba wewe pia wakati utaingia uongozini utafanya yale ambayo unatuambia, kwa sababu these things we are recording them and we will account. Josephine, this thing we will and going soon, going forward, we'll call the all those who want to this election position, and we want to be clear going forward. We will not make a mistake that we did with the false promises. Wanda, go ahead, then can.
Thank you so much.
Uh,
I'll be available once you call me.
Okay, go ahead. Wanda, go ahead.
uh, thank you so much. Looking into the AUC bid, there are a few things that I was able to learn from it. That as a people, we need to be very careful with them going forward. Number one, we are making ourselves a mockery, a shame as a country, looking into the regional organization, the continent, and as well the world in general. The respect that at some point we had, we are losing it. We are losing it, and look into how we are losing it. We are failing to differentiate between the local politics and the international image, and how that image will come back into either addressing the kind of relationship and the geopolitical relationship that as a people we are going to forge. Because if you can imagine that we have some persons within the country celebrating in the name of one of their own an election at an international podium, or that is international wise, then it is bad in general. That there is a way you address your local differences, your own in-house differences, and when you go outside the borders. Therefore, as a country, we really need to be very careful. Comes out clearly and so smart, then it will be easy for the Raila Ruto team to imagine that they are ganging up against us. So let us come together, then protect what is already in our hands. It's different from what we had in 2007, where this seat was in their hands. This time round, it will be easier for the Ruto Raila team to imagine that they want to snatch what is already in our hands. So let us guard it, let us protect it. And therefore, where I sit, I'll imagine that it is easier, not even Raila to be given any sensitive seat or any active role to play in this government or this regime, but this guy might choose to retire but remain active, control the ODM as a house, make it more relevant, such that if one of their own want to side with the perceived the Mount Kenya team, then such
Wanda, network yako mazee. Check your connections. I think it has issues.
political wise, chances are Mzee active in organizing podium,
Yeah,
protect
break.
what
Yeah.
is already in their hands. In terms of the foreign policy, using it,
Wanda, we are losing you a lot.
oh, you're losing me. I'm saying that
Yeah.
come You can now hear me, right?
Exactly. Katu hapo sisonga, lakini umesonga tena. Haya, angalia
Okay,
chombo
yeah, let's go to the next
unjacho
speaker.
kinitumia. Can
Ken.
go ahead.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me very well?
Yeah, you're okay.
Oh, thank you very much. First of all, by the way, I'm also an aspiring MP for Kibera constituency. Is indeed a very, very powerful discussion. My message is just to the Gen Zs, and as we are looking at this political sphere right now, you see, we also, as Gen Zs, we shouldn't be looking at it on the angles of the Kenya Kwanza or the angles of the Azimio or those political parties that have always been there, but we've not yet seen any substantial change. They are all birds of the same feathers. So even when I saw that some youths or people were saying that it's good thing that Raila failed, I cannot also blame them because there was a time that he was needed by the youths to support, to stand with them, but nothing happened. He never said anything, but he used that opportunity to be able to make friends with the person whom we were against at that particular time. So, what I can urge the Gen Zs going forward, we are the ones who have the votes going forward. We need to start holding our local MPs accountable. First of all, we need to start with them, by the way. Before we start saying Ruto must go, we need to start holding our MPs within your constituency accountable. How do you do that? You need to check on what the person had promised and where are we currently. Have you realized that many of these MPs, once they have the seat, they get to now be consolidated and either work for the president and not work for the people who voted them in? So it is time for us to show this current regime that we are not our fathers. We are not gonna be tribal because we definitely hata kunajua hata wengine hata tumesahau hata kuongea lugha zetu. You see, we are tribalists. And what that means is that we only need leaders who want to take our name and name of Kenya up above, in a sense that we can easily get good friends and easily get investors who can come to the country, and we see money circulating very well. So my small message to the Gen Z is this: do not forget who betrayed you. This regime has betrayed us. Gachagua has betrayed us. Raila has betrayed us. Kalonzo, all those people who are there, they've all betrayed us. Let's pray and hope and support any young person who would want to either fight for that same seat. We need a fresh mind. We need a fresh person. See how watu kuwara shuffle every now and then. We're not going to play our mother's game. Thank you very much, Hilary.
Ken, asante sana umesema kuja Kibera, lakini ukianza kujiandika honorable, see you are just the same like them, because these are the word that they usually use for us to diminish the people, because these
Yeah.
names honorable and everything, it is just
Yeah.
mushimiwa and everything. I think this is the
Yeah.
mentality that we are when you go to westernized countries. Somebody
Yes.
like, for example, you
Mm.
come to Canada, you talk to Trudeau. It's just
Yes.
Trudeau. We know he's the prime minister. Why
True.
you are
Mm.
still a
Mm.
little this thing? But I hear what you're saying, and we're
Yeah.
supporting that. Let us
Mm.
know, and we support that. That's what the pressure points stand for. But we need
Yeah.
accountability, and we need straightforward, and we need
Yeah.
people who will work for the people, not people work
Yeah.
for them. All
Thank you
right.
very much for
Thank you
that.
so
And thank
much.
you
I wish
also
you
for
well,
that
man.
beautiful advice. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
wish you well. Wish you well, bro.
Okay.
Thank you so
Pamoja.
much.
Cheers.
Ambrose is coming here to champion the disability. Actually, we've been talking, and sometimes we forget our people with disability, and it's very important to know that these people exist, and it is not their fault, but this is how they were created, and we need to speak to them, or we need to speak on behalf of them and to champion about them. I know Alphonse wants to say something. Ambrose wants to say something about that, and also as he give us way forward. Ambrose, go ahead. I see you, Snoopy. I see you, Shirao. Just give me a time. We'll give you a mic.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
you are, bro.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you for the co-host for this panel on state of the nation and the AU Pride and what is next. My name is Director Ambrose Lasoy. I work with the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, and I'm also a blind person. And that is why I was complaining down there. My braille has been failing me. The time I'm coming up, it fails and crack down. But fortunately, thank you for being able to join. Now, Hillary, I've been hearing people talking about the AUC and the failures of Raila Odinga. I want to put things here straight and say that the failures we had yesterday at AU is not Raila's predicament, it is the Kenya's predicament. And I want to remind you shortly on in 2020 when we had also another candidate from Kenya called Amina Mohamed, who was also proposed by Uhuru Kenyatta to represent us in election. And Amina loses the seat to the outgoing judge chairperson. We have failures as a country, and number one, for mobilizing our own neighbors and our own friends. If you remember, Hillary and colleague here, Kenya was not voted in by some of the East African countries. We talk about the countries like Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. The only country in East Africa which voted for Kenya at that time was South Sudan, where right now the South Sudan is not part of the voters in this yesterday election because it was banned from voting due to some civil wars. We have countries like Nigeria, Niger, Mali, Guinea, Gabon, Burkina Faso, and Sudan, who were friends to Kenya, but now they were not able to vote. So for me, I say it is a very good opportunity for Raila Odinga to have garnered a very highest number of votes, despite some friends who never voted for our country. But this is a lesson to learn. And we also need to think as a country, and I will request our President Ruto to do more friendship on the neighboring countries. Because if your neighbors are not believing in you, there is nowhere you can go. If you see the votes, you also got it yesterday, in round 1 to round 6, there was only a difference of 5 votes. Whereas if you see the countries which did not vote, they were around 5. So it means if Kenya had a very good relationship with these other countries, and if we had built a very good relationship with this other African nation through number one, conflict resolution in terms of peace and security. The only thing that failed Kenya this time is peace and security due to chances and the issues. And somebody was talking and says that the chances wrote a lot of emails to the panel in Ethiopia so that Raila will not be voted. That was not true. Even if you had sent millions of emails to the panel, that was not the reason why Raila Odinga was not voted in. So Kenya should fight in terms of, should convince the member states in AUC about the infrastructure and energy development. That was the main key issues. The candidate was supposed to diplomatically express during their campaigns. The other thing was agricultural development, trade, industry, and development. There was an issue of free visa to Africa. I'm one of the people who have a visa to USA. If you have a visa in USA, you can travel 50 countries without any question. But here in Africa, every country has its own visa. Where if you want to go to Uganda, you need to go to undergo a lot of frisking issues. So those were the things the candidate was supposed to do. We had an issue of disability and youth development. For me, as one of the colleagues with disabilities, I never heard Raila Odinga talking about the approaches on disability inclusion in AUC. If you see the manifesto for Yausa, it touches around 7 points on disability. And if it was me now, if I was voting, I would not have voted for Raila because he has not touched in his manifesto about how the disability inclusion was to be tackled during the SU leadership if he was to be supported. The other thing was migration on labor and employment. Kenyan has 80% of youth who are unemployed and they are graduate. The economic integration on private sector development, diaspora civil society engagement, and gender equality development. What was the manifesto for Raila Odinga as compared to other candidates in that seat? So, as I'm winding up, my good friend
What
Hillary,
next? Mm.
as much as we are saying there are a lot of details, information that African countries may not undermine the candidates, we need to be honest to ourselves. Our president, for the first time, had a Congress support to this candidate as compared to the future end. If you see Amina Mohammed, there were no more support from the Kenya who supported Amina than Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga got a very solid rock support from Kenyan government. The only problem we have in Kenya is we never identified the problem these other nations are going through. Like here in our neighbors, Tanzania. Today, the president of Tanzania was talking and saying, why I choose to vote for Yausa. And I was listening to her and say, yeah, she's very correct. Why she voted away from our borders, because whatever the vote they were doing was about the interest of the country and not the neighborhood we have. So I wonder why we are fighting and say, no, Raila has failed. Raila has not failed. The country has failed in identifying the gray areas which they were supposed to compose themselves and convince other countries to vote for them. So for today, thank you so
Thank you.
much, Hillary, for giving me an opportunity. Let me end there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let us keep on engaging all the time. And actually, Pressure Point is here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Kenya time. But tomorrow we are hosting a space for specifically for Uganda. We are talking about Besije. Dr. Tamaro, I see you, Shialo and Snoopy. But Dr. Tamaro, go ahead.
Thank you, Hilary. You know, I've been waiting for the mic for quite a while, but thank you for giving me the chance. Um, first thing, okay, I'm sorry I was late today. I've been moving up and down, but at least I got a chance. Let's talk about the AUC bid. When we talk about the country Kenya itself, I wrote in the comment, it's like a dog. When a dog actually give birth to puppies and there's anger, it end up eating its own. So that's what we are doing exactly as Kenyans. We are not supporting our own. Okay, we are supporting our own physically, but actually in other ways that in real words, we are not actually supporting our own. Raila had a big chance of taking the seat home, but because of the way we are not organized in a way. Kenya has been a political powerhouse for Africa, but the way it looks, we are losing it in a lot of ways because we are not organized first, and we keep on blaming each other for long. And the government itself is not supporting its own. I've seen it's not supporting its own for a long time, for quite a while. When I refer back when Omanyala was actually leaving the country to go and run, he's going to represent a country and he's denied a visa to travel and he was late. But he did our best. So we are not supporting our own. And that actually shows how disorganized we are as a country, from the top leaders down to the bottom part. If we want to go far as a country, then we have to be ready, support our own, and we do house cleaning for those people who are actually trying to pull us back. We do the house cleaning. let's always try to correct ourselves, but in our country. But out there, if someone or one of us want to go and rise and represent our country, let's support that person. The support
and because because look at even the regional projects that were conceived as regional. SGR was meant to be a regional project. It was not meant to be a Kenyan project. It was meant to go to Eastern Congo, all the way to Rwanda. But Rwanda pulled out, Uganda pulled out. Why? Because the cost within the Kenyan section was exponentially high, and they couldn't be party to that. They could not. They refused. Suddenly, land where this project was supposed to go, like, went up hundredfold and what have you. The usual thievery that characterizes our body politic. They said, no, you can go ahead. The Ugandan government wanted to construct a pipeline from their oil fields in western Uganda. That railway line was supposed to pass through Kenya, which is a shorter route, less expensive. But it eventually passed through Tanzania to Tanga, longer route. But for some reason, it's cheaper than passing through Kenya. And also the volatility of the Kenyan politics. Ugandan couldn't agree to have such a strategic project as far as the economy is concerned, passing through a country whose politics is mercurial. So it's no wonder even Museveni didn't pitch at Addis. It did not, because they don't take us seriously. They know our politics is so mediocre. So I think if we have to learn something from this Addis disaster, is that we have to do an appraisal of ourselves and come to the realization that we tend to exaggerate our importance and significance. And we take a realistic view of our standing and build on that and learn to earn respect. Raila Odinga, for instance, I'm glad, Abdi, you've read that statement. He's been in the trenches with Kiza Besigye for the longest time. They've been in the trenches. He's abandoned him. He said no word about Kiza. Why? Because he was expecting a vote from Yoweri Museveni, who didn't even pitch in Addis, who didn't even show up. Yes, he couldn't speak about the Kiza Besigye incarceration because he feared losing support from Uganda. But Yoweri didn't even pitch. He went to take care of his cattle in his kraal in western Uganda. You can see how not conducting your politics on the basis of principles can be so self-defeating and mediocre. We must learn from that. Hillary, politicians make rational choices, just like all of us. If you make this decision, what are the gains? What are the likely costs? Human beings will behave like that. Politicians do that. So when Raila comes from Addis, his political choices going forward will be rational. If he goes to where Kalonzo is and Rigathi, they will not make him their presidential candidate. They won't. They will want him to support one of them. He's not prepared to do that. because he's been making kings and he doesn't gain anything. So he can't go there. They won't make him presidential candidate, and he's not likely to endorse one of them to run against William Ruto. Can he run on his own? What are his chances? He'll fare badly if he ran solo. So what option is he left with? The option he's left with is to continue enjoying the trappings of power without actually exercising it the way he's doing now. And the only option he has is to endorse William Ruto for a second term. That is
But
a
see,
rational
but
choice to make.
Shilao, that is the I think the option everyone here, even you,
Yes.
if you have something to enjoy, you'll
Yeah.
do that. So,
Yeah.
what is our take on that? Because we know
Our
that
our
they
take
have
on that.
Kenya politics has been, or African politics is that we have to combine the force for us to win.
Our take
So
on that.
as young people, as Gen Zs,
Yes.
what we need to have a force ourselves,
Hil-
so that these people are sitting down. We need to sit down also.
no, Hillary, we will have to be iconoclastic. Iconoclastic. That we are prepared to do something that has never been done before. And that will mean we do away with binaries. The media likes binaries in Kenya. This two-horse race nonsense, you can see they're building it. That publicity they're giving regard, they're building a two-horse race nonsense. So that at the end of the day, you are given two presidential candidates, one fronted by that camp of Kalonzo Rigadi and another one by William Ruto and his camp. We don't want that. And we will have to do something that has not been done before, that we will go for a fringe candidate. That is it. That's how revolutionary we are supposed to be. But if we entertain any notion that either of these camps can neutralize the other, well, the memo is that the incumbent will prevail. That's the bad news. So we will
Thank you
have
so.
to do away with both camps and go for a fringe candidate.
I hear you. I hear you. Thank you so much. So tomorrow we are here for BCJ. Don't miss, man. I hear you have a lot of insights of the same. That's a great thing. Okay. Snoopy Kenya.
Who are just really, really desperate for change. Bring us back to a place of healing and reconciliation, or do we want to participate into this is wrong and shouldn't be done, and yet we're not providing solutions to 60% of our this way, and what are the solutions that can lead us to not do that, to not outrightly support other candidates against our own. Because I don't think that they're doing it just for fun or just out of spite. It's out of desperation and it's out of failed promises. Who's done that? The very person that awoken them, the very person that gave them hope and then yanked it away from them. That's the first thing. The second thing is another person talked about this condoling Kisumu, celebrating or saying Ruto must go. And we're not. And it's not just this person, really. It is the narrative that has taken over. We are focused that every person, that every place that you look, you will be told about a video of Kikuyus in Nyeri singing and praising the failure of Raila. There were many others, but they're not being highlighted or leveraged because there's a continuum of a narrative that's being built. We cannot stop that narrative. I think what is our responsibility is how do we avoid ourselves getting into those trappings? Because if we do get into those trappings, then how are we better? I yield.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, do you want to go ahead? Yeah,
Yeah,
give
I just
the
want to add to
Ronyo,
what.
Redemptor, and then Dr. Milton. But add what you want to add. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we go to the closing remarks for Milton, Redemptor, and Ronya. Yeah, I think one thing that is clear is we stand at a critical crossroad, and so does Raila Odinga. I will say that even though his legacy was cemented, but his political relevance now depends on how he navigates the tides, the changing tides. I think the days of unquestioned loyalty are over, and the Gen Z revolution has disrupted the political calculation. For Raila, the way forward is not just about personal ambition, but it's about his place in the Kenyan evolving democracy. Will he be a statesman who shepherd the next generation into leadership, or will he attempt another political gamble that risks further alienation? The people have moved. The old order is crumbling. The demand is fresh for untainted leadership. What happened next is up to him, but more important is up to the people. Kenya must move beyond personalities, focus on, I think, on institution, governance, and true political reforms. If Raila chooses to be part of that transition, he must show it with action, not rhetoric. It doesn't, I would say it doesn't, if he doesn't, the people will move forward also without him. I think that is what has been coming out from this conversation. Over to you, Dr. Milton, for your closing statement, and then Ronyo, and then Redemptor. Thank you. Dr. Milton?
Maybe it's away from the mic. Ronyo, go ahead. Then Redemptor.
Ronyo, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Abdi. I really appreciate it. I've been listening to everybody who has been speaking, and everyone is really saying a lot of good things. And I want to disagree and agree with everybody who says that. Disagree with those who are saying that the voices of people or the contribution of those people who have been voicing out and the people who have been patriotic enough to take their time to write and also advocate for good governance, because the issue that we are trying to bring right now is that we are trying to kill this thing of kingmanship, because you look at change will not come. It might not come today, it might not come tomorrow, but I love what the country, or how the trajectory that we are taking as a country. We were not here last year or the year before, but the way we are going forward, you look at us right now spending hours and hours together for us to discuss good governance. No one is paying us to be here, and no one is paying Hillary to even come up with to hold this space, or even Abdi, or even Redemptor, Dr. Milton. All of us here, we are here because we want good governance. We want a country that works. We want systems, and we want institution that works. And I believe the people who are coming and saying we are going to, we are like Josephine and the others who are saying, okay, we are going for political positions. We are going for this seat and the other. Most of them, they will go in those places, and we're praying that they get, but they will go there knowing that people are watching every step they're taking. And even as Hillary was telling Josephine, next time you'll come here and explain why you want to be the governor of Mombasa. So the people who are going next in the next election that is coming,
the people who are going to be elected, they are going to know that we are going in to serve people, but not to serve a personal interest. And the from since June, and even you hear Ruto says there is a new era, there is a new dawn that the country is taking. It is no longer business as usual, because we cannot be sitting down while people are taking 10 and above billions just to spend for one position, for somebody to secure one position. We cannot be sitting
Okay.
down when, yes,
Go ahead. Try to learn. Thank you.
oh, okay, just 30 seconds. We cannot just be sitting down when someone tells us we are spending 104 billion to buy a system that is not working. We cannot be sitting down when the university funding model is not working. So it is upon us to take our country back. It is upon us to set things right. So thank you so much, Hilary and Abdi, and everybody who has spoken. And I really appreciate, and God bless all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ronyo. We're doing our 2 minutes closing remark. Redemptor, over to you. Okay.
Lemta, go ahead. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So thank you very much for everyone who has contributed. Sometimes I think Western is very stern. I don't know if it's a tone or just the aggression of, because we are here to have a conversation about the mistakes we keep making. And I want to start by saying that I think it's Justice for All who's told us about patriotism and emailing. And that is a disease of someone who was socialized to say vyombo za wageni. You can't make noise because wageni wako around. I cannot fathom how patriotism is applied when people are doing everything to stay alive in terms of abduction. So that notion that being patriotic or crying baby or even it didn't affect AU, it did affect AU. People are watching us. Basinjo, even as we stand in solidarity, we must remember, was abducted from Kenya. The lady from Tanzania, Maria, was about to be abducted if Kenyans of goodwill had not stopped it. And I'll finish by saying anybody who is above 50, I'll just do a very quick math. If you started supporting Raila in 92, then that's 33 years. If you voted for him 97, that's 28 years. 208 is a lull because he supported Kibaki. If you supported him from 207, that's 18 years. And these are people who are struggling to throw mud at Raila. And I did have a space and I had this conversation and I said, women grieve their fertility. What do men grieve? Because an 80-year-old, a 90-year-old man can still procreate. Men grieve when they lose the power of dominance. And that is what is going on. When you hear the media, when you hear the people of my generation going back to the old narratives of how political alliances are made, it's because they do not know any other conversation because they've done it. My last submission then is this Gen Z method. There's a method in the mess. And somebody has told me I hang out with them. I have been hanging out with Gen Zs from July mostly. And I used to stay up until 2 a.m. talking or listening to them. And they would kick me out of their spaces until I realized I was going to do those conversations like I do parenting. When they are down, I come down. When they are too high for me to manage, I walk away. When they want to be left alone to figure it out, I leave them alone. And the assumptions we are making when people come and saying there's no method, there's no movement, is the assumption that you were there when they made a movement that shook this nation politically. I have asked them and they said, we will tremor again. There will be an earth moving movement that you will not see coming. And I have faith in that. And so I don't bother myself asking them, how are you going to do it? We have to realize there's a trust deficit, even in terms of having conversations online about what's going to happen. What I do is celebrate them because they did something that is heroism in their generation. And I have grace for those who cannot let go, talking about Baba with adoration, because if you support the impression he was going to take us to Canaan, only for him to end up in his own Canaan. And I wish him well, because we are talking about this and the state of the nation. I will be here to monitor the conversation. I will be here to pinpoint the narratives. And the current narrative is it's business as usual. It will never be business as usual since the Gen Zs took their right, their constitutional right to protest, and you killed them. Those who remained are speaking for the ones who went before them. We have to honor that. We have to applaud that. And sometimes with a lot of tears when we remember how we continue to be treated when we speak up, those who support them, because we are here sometimes I'm here in the role of just a mother, an activist, a writer, but a Kenyan. And I think speaking up against injustices in Kenya is the greatest patriotism one can ever exercise. Aluta continue.
Thank you, Redemptor. Over to you, Dr. Milton, for your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to try and be very brief. I think listening to everybody here tonight and reading the mood in the country, I just want to remind us that the most important urgent business we have is that we must be able to maintain our eyes on the ball. And I want to pick somebody who said that, yes, we are an important country, but we are not powerful. And I think that is very true, which is, it exemplifies, it talks about the problem that we have as a country. And the problem is governance. We have made a joke of ourselves because we have corruption, abductions, extrajudicial killings, education is not working, healthcare is a mess. And at the end of the day, if we want to be relevant, if we want to rekindle and reestablish our position among the international community of nations, the most urgent business right now we have is to fix our governance. And fixing our governance means that we allow people of goodwill, people who mean well, to sort out our governance from the MCA all the way to State House. And I want to emphasize as I land that let us not be delusional about this blackmail by the political class that holding an elective positions has a security of tenure. There is no security of tenure in any political office, and those people can be removed anytime the people feel that they are not serving their interests. And there would be no better time to deal with that issue of sorting our governance and sending a strong message that in Kenya you cannot be telling us about 2027 when you are not doing that which we expect you to do. The constitution is our supreme document, it is our guiding document, it is the people's social contract. And whether Raila Odinga wins AUC or not, what we are saying is that as he comes back home, we expect that he would stand for and do the right thing. We expect that every Kenyan of goodwill will demand governance, good governance, better service delivery for the people, and respect for the rule of law and constitutionalism. That is the urgent business that we have, and that is what I am leaving us with here tonight, that it does not matter what happens. What matters and what is most urgent is for us to fix our governance by making sure that those who are given the privilege to lead are doing the right thing. And if they're not doing the right thing, then the people have the right and the power to remove them, regardless of what time of the day in the political term that is. That is my clarion call to Gen Zs, that a luta continua, viva, and Ruto must go. We can't afford to wait for 2027. It is a day too far away. Thank you. May God bless you, and see you tomorrow as we hold the space in honor of Dr. Kiza Besige. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Milton. Thank you always for your presentation. As we come to the end of this insightful discussion, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank our speakers and guests for sharing their knowledge, analysis, and perspective on Kenya current state of affairs. Your insight has not only shed light on the challenges we face, but it has also sparked a critical conversation about the way forward. To everyone who tuned in, contributed, engaged in this space, your voice matter. The discussion we have here are not just talks, they are foundation for action, awareness, and accountability. Kenya is at a defining moment, as we always say. It is through such a dialogue that we shape the narrative and push for a real change. The work does not end here. Let's talk we have discussed today, continue engaging, organizing, demanding a leadership our country deserves. I think the future of Kenya is in our hands, and it's up to those of us to ensure that one of justice, integrity, and progress. Once again, thank you for all you being part of this space. Stay engaged, stay informed, stay committed to the cause. Until next time, take care. Let's keep having this conversation. Good day, good night. Asanteni sana. God bless you. Hillary, over to you as we go to shovels. I know you're going to shovel some snow. It's now
It's
going to
crazy,
30
it's crazy,
centimeters.
it's crazy Abdi. Lakini nashukuru sana Wakenya wote na wageni wote ambao wamehudhuria mkutano wetu wa siku ya leo. Mungu aweze kubariki na wajalie mahali popote mlipo. Kesho tuko hapa kwa ajili ya mwenzetu ambaye ni jirani yetu Ugandan guy Besigye himself. They have requested we host a space for on their behalf. Tutafanya hivyo kesho. Sisi wa Kenya, the way Abdi have said, good governance, good leadership, current affairs, way forward. These are very key factors that we stand for. As pressure point team, we are very much focused. And well, no matter what is happening, every Sunday, as usual, we're here at 7 p.m. to the time that we finish our conversation. Let us keep it alive. During the week, do whatever you can do. Reach out down to our friends down there that cannot join us in this wall. But let us this conversation go ahead. And what we are fighting for is for change and to stand for change. And the change cannot come if you sit back, but let us sit forward and let us move it ahead. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. And may God bless you and see you again tomorrow, same time, same place, at the same hour. God bless you all. Have a wonderful night, a wonderful evening, a wonderful morning, no matter the time you are in. See you again. Follow each other all the time. Bye.